tres. Okay. Es práctica, no más.
No
Uno,
mommy's
dos,
way.
tres. We're rolling.
We are rolling.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Let me get situated before we officially start.
Okay.
Why am I so nervous?
I don't know.
We're fine, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode Complex Like Wine, the podcast where we talk about complicated things and improve over time just like wine does. Welcome to the pod.
Thank you.
It has been well overdue, way too long overdue. So I apologize for that in advance, but we're finally back, and we're just gonna ignore that I've been gone for like over a year. Minor detail, it's fine.
Well, I don't think we should ignore it. First of all, I'm Isaiah Leon. Hello. But I think me included, I think all of us want to know, where have you been, Zaira?
Yeah, so we'll talk about me briefly before we talk about Isaiah. But yeah, so the last episode that I had uploaded was from when I went to Paso. As you guys, some of you have heard, it's probably the last episode I actually uploaded is the most listened to podcast episode, which is interesting. But I think during the time, like right after, was a big transitional period for me. Like I had just gotten into a new relationship. Then all of last year, I had gone back to school, doing classes, was now working full time. And I think just a combination of that, I just really pushed the podcast to the side. And we'll be honest, I think I made excuses that I was too busy and like need to prioritize other things. But when in reality, I had just prioritized other things and was just not making this podcast enough of a priority. So I apologize, listeners, because a lot of you guys have reached out wanting an episode for a long time, and I have just been postponing it, and even now like been postponing it for months because I wanted to make sure it was perfect and like being ready. So as you can see, we're in a whole new room, whole new setup, which is pretty cool. We have a couch now. We're not stuck on the high top tables. Got a nice painting, and so things are working. So I'm excited. So this is gonna be like the first episode of season 2. Yeah.
Wow, I'm honored to be on the first episode.
Yeah. So before we start talking about what we're gonna talk about, so Isaiah and I met. We talked about this like 6 or 7 years?
I thought it was like 8 years. Well, 7 years, I think.
7, yeah.
I was 18.
I was 19.
Now I'm 25.
I'm about to turn 26.
So do the math.
What the heck? But yeah, we met in college. We both met in film because I got my emphasis in directing, screenwriting, and then Isaiah kind of went more the producing route. So Isaiah and I became really close buddies freshman year, and actually 2 of my films Isaiah helped me on as a producer. So yeah, those were pretty cool. And we just got reconnected after a few years of going different ways. But so far the past 3 months have been fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's been great to reconnect. Yeah. And I'm so honored to be a part of this podcast. I've really loved what you've been doing with this podcast because it's really refreshing to hear from people's just life experiences going through their own mental health journeys. And as a young man, I think like I'm part of your like target demographic.
Yeah. As
far as like, most of your listeners are young men. And we don't really talk about this stuff. And I think it's important to talk about, what you have done and what other young men have done to get through their lives. Because sometimes going through life is tough. And, with our friends, like we don't really talk about this stuff. So I'm really glad that you're doing this. And I'm really glad to be on the podcast, be able to like share a little bit about my whole mental health journey, which isn't something that I share with even some of my closest friends. So I'm a little nervous to talk about it, but I'm glad that you have this space to be able to like open up about it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive in, cheers.
Cheers.
Yay. So the last season, like you've listened to some of the episodes where I'll talk about the wine bottle and everything. I think this new season, I won't dive into that too much. But for anyone curious, we have the San Simeon Petite Syrah that we're drinking for this first episode of season 2. So,
and it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So,
well, actually, going back, I want to know a little bit more. What made you want to start this podcast up again?
I never wanted it to stop in the first place. So I definitely take full responsibility that I just stopped making this a priority. And mental health, literally since starting the podcast, since pandemic, when I started doing therapy, has been so important to me. And I guess some updates from last episode that people had heard to now. I decided to switch my whole master's idea. And so now I'm going to be pursuing a master's in positive psychology. That is the goal. So I'm going to start applying and everything beginning of fall. But with that in mind, I was like, okay, like I now know for sure, like somehow within psychology, this is what I want to do. And with that, I'm like, I felt more compelled and convicted. Like, okay, well, if I want to do that, I have to start the podcast again because there's so much more conversations to be had. And with all the different people that have reached out in the DMs or like messages or calls asking for the podcast again, has like weighed on me for so long. So I'm actually really happy to be doing it again. And with you. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think how it got to having Isaiah on the podcast, when we first got reconnected, like we literally chatted. Is that right grammar? We chatted. Whatever. It's the wine. We chatted for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot to catch up on.
Yeah. But then I think it was just really cool because like we were already diving into like really deep personal stuff. It was just so easy to talk to you about like what's been going on and all the major things, like some of it very recently for me, some things that like, or still recent for you. Somewhat, yeah. Which we'll get into that in the podcast, but it's just kind of nice to be able to kind of pick back where we left off and then just realize like, oh wow, there's just like conversations that are like, I miss having these type of conversations with people. So it's like, please be on the podcast. So glad you agreed.
Well, I love getting deep with emotional stuff with friends who I trust, and you are a friend that I trust, and I feel like I can get vulnerable with you with those sort of topics. But like I said, I don't open up to everybody. It's really hard for me to feel like I trust somebody enough to be able to open up in front of them. But you are a friend that I have felt like I can open up in that way. And so I don't think I would have done this if I didn't already have that trust established with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really glad that we're able to do this. And it was really easy for me to also just like open up to you that first time we reconnected. Because I don't know, it felt like we were just picking up where we left off. Like it was just talking to an old friend, and it felt really nice. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to be here. This is cool.
Yeah.
I've never done anything like this before, like a podcast.
It's pretty fun.
Just talking about my life. I mean, it's kind of cool.
Just get to have like a vent session, but it's recorded.
Yeah.
And other people get to tune in later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll start diving into what we have already been like talking about for months to talk about. Well, I guess like a little snippet of me. I had mentioned just like a few minutes ago where, yeah, one of the things I had gone to a relationship. Well, I got out of that relationship right around the time we reconnected. And so I think that was like one of the big things we wanted to like discuss on, especially going through a breakup and then having your aha moment of like trying to discover who you are, and then the different things that go along with that you might like experiment or try to kind of get to that. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess I'm going to try my best to be as considerate to this other person, but while also being honest. Because I think it does no one favors to just like BS things. But yeah, had gone to a relationship with someone that had already been in my life for a long, long time. And then you just kind of realize it's not what you had expected. And I think this relationship really enforced the whole idea of like, you need to take your time to get to know somebody, because you could know somebody for like 8 years for both of us. It was 8 years for you and I with our significant other. And for my experience, like I did not really know everything about this person until it came time to like the last few months, or not the whole relationship. So I think some of the biggest learning lessons coming out of it has just been knowing your value, your worth. Like, what are you willing to settle versus what you're not willing to compromise, whether it's values, ambition, drive, just your life in general. And having to put yourself first, which is really fucking hard sometimes.
Yeah. Especially when you're just like in a relationship and your mindset is all about like the relationship and wanting to improve that and wanting to like focus on that. It's hard to focus on yourself.
Yeah, it's super, super hard. And I think it's like important to find that balance of wanting to put effort into the relationship, but then knowing, is it at the cost of yourself? Which I think for me, I felt like I was compromising everything of me.
Yeah.
Like I felt very, very drained. Like, to kind of like tell people that are listening, the life that I had up until January, if you had asked me everything I've been doing so far in 2023, I would have done. Like, if you had asked me in December I was doing this the year I was having, like, I would have been like, no way. Like, I wouldn't really believed it, because I've done so much within the past 4 months, more than like the entire past 2 years, which is crazy. So I think that was also kind of depressing, kind of embarrassing, but also like a good wake-up call of, man, like, yeah, you really have to just know what's best for you, even if it means like walking away from something that's comfortable, that's familiar, and something you still really, really want. Like, those decisions are hard.
Yeah. It's hard to just rip away from that. You have this whole like fantasy, I mean, not fantasy, but this whole idea of where your future is going and where it could go, and to get rid of that, to go the other way, is terrifying. Like you said, it's the easy path is just to stick with it.
It's like what we talked about earlier today, like, oh, it's the safe choice.
The safe choice.
But do you really want to live your safe choice? Is that what's going to be really fulfilling?
Yeah.
And like, regardless of like a breakup or anything, this isn't life in general. There's people that stick in their bubble and pick the safe choices, but then is there any growth? Have you been able to like accomplish things you normally wouldn't have been able to? Probably not. And so it's, yeah, I think the biggest thing was like, man, what am I willing to put up with? And I realized, like, I'm already putting up with a lot of BS that I don't need to deal with.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because you don't want to, like, especially with your significant other, you don't want to think of them that way, or you don't want to think badly of them. But then you just get to a point where like the rose-colored glasses come off, and you're just faced with the facts. And you're like, yeah, this is not working. Like, it's very dysfunctional. Yeah.
Yeah, relationships are hard, man. It's hard to be able to prioritize yourself and also think about the relationship as not your responsibility, but also like a joint responsibility. Because sometimes you feel like the other person isn't giving it all, and you feel like it's all your responsibility to take on that burden. But it's not. If the other person isn't giving what you're putting in, then what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on this.
Oh, no. Yeah, you can fucking cuss. Like,
Okay.
like, it's fine. Yeah, I remember when we had first connected, we were talking about that, like the amount of effort that like we both felt we were the ones giving more effort than receiving, and like how that ends up affecting you in the long haul. So please dive into that, because I'm curious, like from like the male's perspective versus like the female's perspective. Like I don't know, like.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if male, female has anything to do with it. I think it just depends on who your partner is and how much they're willing to put into the relationship. Because in my experience, I mean, I went through a pretty rough breakup a few years ago, not as recent as you, but I was with this person for 6 years, and I thought I was going to marry her. I thought that, I mean, I had this whole idea of where my life was going to go. And towards the end of the relationship, it was very apparent, not immediately, but like, you know, the last few days was very apparent that she wasn't putting in as much as I was putting in. That it was a lot of me serving her needs, and I didn't feel that I was getting any of that in return. But I don't know if it was like more of a, I don't think it was like a male female type thing.
I guess I was coming from more like, on paper, females might have more things of like the needs that they're wanting might be different from like a man's needs. So like for most females I talk to, it's kind of more of the idea that like the security, or that they just want to be listened to, like heard. Versus some guys that I've talked to, they kind of want more either like acts of service or more like physical touch. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, yeah, those were big things for sure. And like the fault isn't all, I don't want to like build this story putting all the blame on her, because it was just, we weren't right for each other.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't want to say that like I was putting in all of the effort, because obviously she was trying. And, you know, we really loved each other, and we were both trying, but she wasn't right for me. And so I think that was the main thing, is that we just really weren't right for each other. And the way that I show love wasn't the same way that she was showing. Like the way that I show love, and the way that I like my love language weren't being focused on.
Yeah.
Like it was just incompatible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always like that. It's like, that's just how it kind of developed, because we were so young when we started dating. I mean, we were like in high school. So then once we kind of grew up and matured into somewhat adults, kind of starting to almost finishing college, we were totally different versions of ourselves at that point. And I think a lot of it with my relationship was I didn't really even know who I was at that point, because I was kind of maturing into a young man, and I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what kind of a young man I wanted to be in this life. So I was kind of just approaching the relationship as an adolescent, but I didn't really know what kind of a young man I was yet. So it's so complicated. I mean, we could talk about this for hours. I think the relationships are crazy.
I think a lot of people forget that each like relationships are constantly changing and growing.
Yeah.
And because you're constantly changing and growing, and so is the other person, like you're going to have moments where it's kind of like intertwining, where you might be super close and overlapping in a lot of ways. And then other moments you guys are just completely like polar opposites.
Yeah.
And I think the marriages that last really long, like they're aware of that, and like learning how to adjust to how their partner is changing. And I think especially when like your early 20s, specifically like around like graduating college, there's like a lot of changes. Like you're just trying to just figure yourself out. Yeah. Like it gets really hard.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, some people can do it. Like my sister and brother-in-law have been married for a few years now and have kids and everything. And they got together in high school, and they kind of grew together and matured together. But I don't know. I think I had very radical change in my personality, or not personality, but just my development as a young man from an adolescent. I think it wasn't. I mean, some people don't change as much, I think, and they kind of just stay in that sort of mindset that they were raised to envelop.
I think that was kind of the main issue with my ex and I, where comes just like not compatible. Like someone, you're either like complacent and you're comfortable in your bubble, and then that was more him. At least that's, yeah, like that's just matter of fact. He was just like very comfortable with what he was at, versus me. Like, I have a lot of drive. I'm ambitious. There's goals I want to do. And so, you know, nothing wrong if you're comfortable with that, but then you can't expect the other person to like sink to that level, or like want to drag them down just to make you comfortable. Because then neither of you are growing, and that doesn't work either.
Yeah, no, I think I had kind of a similar experience, like with my significant other who I mean, my ex. I think I wanted to go on one path, and she was kind of going on a different path. And, you know, we were at a point in our relationship where I wanted to be a part of her journey, you know, and I tried so hard to be a part of her journey, but like it just didn't work. And like she wanted to be a part of my journey too, but it was like two completely different paths, and you can't go on both paths. You got to pick one.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to come to the realization that like she can't come with me on my path.
Yeah. So how was that for you? Like, how was processing like, okay, yeah, this like that path, like our paths are no longer our anymore. Like, there's like videos I see online, which I think is super accurate. Like women figure out, like they mentally start detaching months before they break up. Because like they already like they know in their gut the answer, but it just takes a few months to actually like make the action to end it. Like as a guy, well, like what was your experience? Was it kind of like over months you kind of knew that was coming up, or was it kind of like within weeks or days you realized like?
I think it was a long time coming. I think the last like year of my relationship, I knew something was off, and it was just constantly like trying to fix it. We were fighting a lot, talking a lot, trying to figure out like how can we, you know, make things like the way they were before, you know, how can we be crazy about each other like it was before? And we just couldn't figure it out. And then the months went by, and I think COVID had a lot to do with it. I mean, we were in quarantine and stuck with each other every day, and I was kind of sick of her and she was kind of sick of me. But I think that I realized I think I had it in the back of my head for months that like maybe this isn't right for me. Maybe something else. Maybe I need to go on a different path, and it's just not working anymore. But we were together for 6 years, so I was convincing myself like, no, like just keep going, like the easy path, just keep going on the easy path, you know. But then it came to the realization, like, I mean, the day we broke up, I realized like, nope, it's over. Like there's nothing I can do or she can do to make it work.
Yeah.
And that was really hard to accept, and it took me a long time to accept that. But that was the truth of it, was that we just grew apart.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I think with my relationship, we were best friends for 8 years, but we were only together officially for the year. And I would say by like the 8-month mark, the 7th or 8th month is when it was started getting bad. And from that to like the end of the relationship, which was like an additional like 5 months, it was just like constant fighting. And it started becoming like a weekly thing where like another thing would come up. And I think the biggest issue I had with that relationship was it didn't matter how many times we had the same conversation of trying to fix it. It was just the same I don't even know what to call it mistakes. It was just the same choices on this person's end were just being made, which would end up creating a cycle of doesn't matter how many times we're like trying to hash this out. If like habits are being changed, then it's like I might as well be speaking to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in my gut, I had known for like 3 months that like I don't think this is redeemable. But because he was my best friend for so long, and the fact that like, you know, we were like living together for a bit, it made it really hard for me to just be so easy to just want to leave. Especially when you like really thought that you're going to marry this person, and you're really talking about it and like making the plans, and like you're already making steps towards it. Like having to let go of that quote unquote fantasy or that dream, I think has always been the toughest part for me. Or like just having to accept that like it's not worth keeping if the reality I'm facing is just miserable. If I'm in misery, then like you said, like, yeah, this person's no longer on the journey with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the hardest part for sure. Just having to like, okay, like let those dreams kind of like.
Yeah. And that's scary.
Yeah.
To just let go of that. Because you think of like, you build up this fantasy in your head of like where your life could go with this person, and just to let all of that go is terrifying. Mm-hmm. And having to realize like, okay, where's my life gonna go now?
Yeah. And I think the part that was kind of like anxious about within the first like week or two was like, okay, who am I? Because like my identity had been so wrapped up on this person. Like we were together 24/7. Like everything I did was with him. And so the fact that now he was gone, it was like almost a mini identity crisis of like, fuck, what do I do? Like, who am I? Like, who do I hang out? Who do I see? And so that ends up going to like the whole like self-discovery, like, who the fuck am I?
No, Zara, I had like a major identity crisis. That was like the last 2 years of my life.
Let's dive into that.
Okay, let's dive into it. So after my breakup, I didn't know who I was. Mm-hmm. I mean, straight up, I had zero idea. Who am I as an individual? Who am I as a man? I didn't have answers to that question. Because for the past like 6 years prior to that, I was just enveloped into this relationship where I thought we were going to be together forever. And it was all about the relationship. And I'm the type of person where I will give everything of myself to the, I mean, maybe that's not healthy. It probably isn't. But I was getting into bad habits where I would just give everything and sacrifice my own personal, like whatever I wanted to do to just satisfy, you know, whatever she wanted to do. And so once we split up, I had to think like, what do I want to do with my life? Because I never really thought about this before. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I can just do whatever I want now. But like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want? Who do I want to be? Like, it was terrifying to have to deal with that. But also I took it as a challenge, and I was kind of excited to go along that journey. But I think the first few months that we broke up, it was a lot of just being depressed, you know, just being in the dumps and trying to just wallow in my self-pity. But once I got out of that and started to make an active effort to get out of that, I found some real comfort in just loving myself and doing whatever I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so I mean, the first year was rough for sure. But I tried my best to just do whatever I wanted to do. And so I traveled a bit. I hung out with friends as much as I wanted. But what we'll talk about, I think the one thing I want to talk about is psychedelics. Because around the 1 year mark, I took mushrooms for the first time, and that radically changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I took mushrooms was in Joshua Tree. I went with a friend of mine out there, and this is actually a whole little side story, but this friend that I reconnected with, we lost touch because I was in this relationship, and um, I had such a that relationship was so focused on her. Like I lost touch with friends. I mean, I lost touch with you
Mm-hmm.
and this other friend of mine, but that's whatever. We reconnected and we went to Joshua Tree together, and he said, "Hey, I got some mushrooms. You want to try some?" And I was like, yeah, maybe, like, see where it takes me. And so I took these mushrooms, and I felt an immense connection to earth and nature. And I this might sound cheesy or stupid, but I fell in love. I fell in love with Mother Nature that night.
Mm-hmm.
And I also felt an immense love and appreciation for the whole earth and whole world that we live in, and the people that walk this earth. I felt a part of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I felt a part of. We'll talk about this later, but I got a little bit into Buddhism post breakup, and in Buddhism they talk about the stream. They talk about how the self doesn't really exist. Like, get rid of the self. What you really are a part of is the stream. And I felt a part of that stream when I was tripping on mushrooms.
Yeah.
Like, I felt a part of just connection to humans and people and nature and earth and everything. And so after that whole experience, I tried my best to, because like before this, I was always a very skeptical, cynical person. And I didn't want to make friends. I didn't want to like meet new people. I hated people. I don't want to talk to you. Like, I just want to be alone and play video games and be in my room. But after that experience, that psychedelic experience, I felt like, no, I need to be a part of this world that I'm living in, because it's beautiful out there, and there's people out there who want connection, and I want connection, and I felt an immense just love for humanity and for nature and for this world that we live in, because it's beautiful. And so ever since then, that was one thing that really helped me just like shift my perspective on life, because I was in the dumps before that.
Yeah.
But after that, it changed my life.
Yeah, shrooms will do that to you.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I didn't, with my breakup, I've only been, oh my God, like three full months since the breakup. So still like super fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had that a chance for an experience yet.
But you've already done that.
Yeah. Minor detail. But yeah, before we continue more on like the self-discovery part, would you say that was like the key thing for helping you kind of get past the breakup? Like past like and going, like the whole analogy, like you're climbing up this like really rough peak. Would you say like that was kind of helped you get to the top, where like now that got you in a good place? Because for me, I think it was one solid month of this sucks. But like I told you earlier, the whole mentality of journaling the reasons why it wouldn't work out and why it didn't. Recording myself when I was like having my meltdowns, and then like anytime I felt like I needed to vent, I would vent to myself on my camera, and just listening to those. I think like for me, those were the key things that helped me not get stuck in the loop of like, oh, what if like maybe I should go back, or I miss him, and just kind of not getting caught up in all of like the good times, but more focus on like what was the facts. But yeah, like, well, would you say that experience kind of helped like turn the page?
I think it helped turn the page for sure, but there was, there's still a whole chapter ahead of that.
Oh.
I think that it changed I don't think I was completely over her at that point, but I was determined to make a change in my life. And shortly after that, I went to Peru.
Yes.
So
yeah, I've been wanting to hear this part.
So after I took mushrooms, I felt like this power within me that was unlocked. Mm-hmm. That I was living in this state of mind of fear and anxiety and like terrified of the world and everything. But once I had that psychedelic experience and feeling that connection with humanity and earth and nature, I felt like I wanted to go and meet people and travel and see the world. So I went on my first solo trip and I chose Peru, was the one that I chose. And I don't know, I think the reason I chose Peru is because I have family there. Mm-hmm. So my grandfather on my dad's side was born in Peru. And I've always wanted to go there, and I have some family there. So it felt like a good place, and I decided to just go to...
I kicked the bottle, sorry.
We'll just pick that up really quick. So I went to Peru by myself. I bought a plane ticket. Like a few weeks after that whole experience, I was like...
A few weeks after?
Yeah, I just bought a plane ticket.
Fuck, dude. That's so cool.
I was like, I want to get out there. I want to see the world. I want to just... And I this was also at a time where I had been working for a little bit, so I had money saved up. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have anyone to go with. Like my family didn't really have an interest in like spending all that money to go to Peru. And like my friends didn't have money to travel to like Peru. I mean, it's expensive. Mm-hmm. But I had some money saved up, and I just wanted to go somewhere. And I kind of did want to go by myself. Like I probably could have coordinated with my family, and one of my cousins really wanted to go, but like he just didn't have money at the time. Maybe I could have waited for him.
But you needed to go by yourself.
I think I did. I think I needed to go by myself. Yeah. And so I bought the plane ticket, and like the day after I bought that plane ticket, I also bought a ticket to go on a 4-day backpacking trip to Machu Picchu by myself. I mean, not by myself, but with a guide and with a group. But yeah, I wanted to just go on this journey by myself and go see Machu Picchu and just see where this adventure took me. I wanted to go on an adventure and see what happened.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's super cool.
And it was a wonderful experience. I mean, I'll never forget it. I went to go see my great aunt in Lima, Peru, which is the capital. I met her, and I was there for her 90th birthday and got to know her, and she passed away shortly after I left.
Oh, wow.
A few months after. And just being able to get to know her was a beautiful experience. And then she like took me around Lima to visit all the tias, all the aunts. Mm-hmm. She took me to some pretty rough places. I have some like family all across Peru, but it was really nice to meet all of them, and we connected on Facebook and everything. That was like the first part of the trip. And then from there, from Lima, I went to Cusco, Peru, which is the ancient capital of the Incan Empire. Mm-hmm. And absolutely gorgeous city. I have a friend, like, you remember Sam? We went.
Yeah.
She's from Cusco.
Oh, okay, right. I remember she was from Peru. I wasn't sure where.
And yeah, Cusco is just a beautiful city, and you can see the mix of architecture of like ancient Incan ruins that the Spanish Empire like built on top of. So it's so cool to see that like that dichotomy of the architecture there. And then outside of the city are the Andes Mountains, which is where you hike to Machu Picchu. So it's stunning. I mean, you can see mountain views all around you. And Cusco is like 11,000 feet up elevation. So once you get there, it's like, whoa, you can't breathe as well as you can at sea level. So I got there for a few days, stayed there in Cusco to kind of acclimate to the altitude, and then went off on my journey to Machu Picchu. And that experience was unforgettable. I think I went to battle with myself in the Andes a bit, because I think I was determined to find a better version of myself out there. That's why I wanted to do this. I wanted to come back as a different version of myself, somebody who has seen the world a bit, somebody who's experienced life a bit, and somebody who with thicker skin. Because before everything, I didn't feel confident in myself, and I wanted to build that confidence and see what I was really capable of. So on this 4-day journey to Machu Picchu, the first day we hiked up to the base camp of Salcantay Mountain, which is like about 15,000 feet elevation, and you can hardly breathe up there.
Yeah.
It's really tough to breathe. And we were camping up there. We were sleeping for the night. And I got really sick. And then I think I also got sick from the water too that they were giving us, because it was just like river water, and they were like boiling it, but I don't think they boiled it correctly, because I got really sick from that.
Yeah.
So
your American stomachs can't.
Yeah. I couldn't handle it. And they were fine. They were just drinking the water and eating the food and just having a good time. And yeah, but I couldn't do it. But that first night, I was just like so sick. I was like, I didn't sleep at all. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but I was sick, very sick, and I couldn't sleep. And then, next day comes, day 2 of the journey. And my guide was well aware that I was very sick. And he asked me if I wanted to get a taxi. Like, they had these mules that could take us to Machu Picchu, and like, you don't have to walk the whole way. And I kept telling him no. I was like, no, you don't know why I'm here, but no. Yeah. Like, I don't want a taxi. Like, I'm going to walk there. I was like determined to finish this on foot. And so I kept walking, even though my stomach and head and my whole body was in pain, but I just kept going. And it really taught me a lesson of just mental toughness, that you can do so much. Like, humans are capable of so much. And that's something that I thought about while on that journey, was like, I can do this. I'm very capable of doing this. I just have to do it and live through the pain. So I went through the whole 4 days and did the whole journey, even though I was sick the whole time and throwing up and, other things. And then when I got to Machu Picchu, finally, when I got to Machu Picchu, I felt fine. Like, I wasn't sick anymore. And just sitting there and looking at one of the wonders of the world and all of its magnificence. And we saw the sunrise coming over Machu Picchu. It was beautiful. And met some new friends there and had an amazing experience. And and then from there, I think after that I did another hike called Rainbow Mountain. And that one was pretty cool. That one's like, you go up to like 17,000 feet on that one. And then I came home, and I want to kind of keep it moving here, but there's a lot more in that journey that I could unpack, but I don't want to get too carried away with it. But the whole experience taught me how to be independent, how to unlock the hidden, how to unlock your mind. I think how to persevere in ways that you don't think you're capable of,
like, because push your body or like push yourself. Yeah, it
taught me a lot of that. So unforgettable experience. And if any of you out there are thinking of possibly doing a solo trip, or you want to travel and you don't have anyone to go with, just go, because you won't regret it.
Yeah, this says a lot on your end, of especially going, it's like for the whole mentality of like you've been with somebody or just like you've been with people and like not to say you weren't independent, but like completely independent, like being okay with yourself, to like having your awakening moment in Joshua Tree with shrooms, to then just a few weeks later being like, fuck, I'm just gonna go buy a plane ticket to Peru, to then get super sick, to be like you're expelling things in all different directions.
Yeah.
No, I give you mad kudos, because it would be so easy for people to be like super sick, to be like, like, okay, I came, whatever, like I made it. Yeah. But like you saw it like all the way through. So
well, that would have been the smart move, to be like, okay, I need help. But yeah, I was determined to just alter my brain chemistry and like really see what else I'm capable of.
And I can just say from now, like the Isaiah that I see now compared to the Isaiah I saw before our little like hiatus of friendship, like exponential growth, 100%. Like I think before it was like, oh, Isaiah, like still like, not that I would say you're a boy, but like,
No, I was.
Yeah. But now like I see like, oh yeah, Isaiah the man, which is so cool to see.
Yeah, I think I needed to figure that out for myself. And I think that's a journey that every young man needs to go on. Like figure out what makes you a man, figure out what kind of a man you want to be, and create that version of yourself. But it's not easy to figure that out. It's not easy. And the world we live in is just like, it's so cushy and it's so easy to just not go on that journey.
Yeah.
But you really do have to push yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely inspiring to me. And like we talked about earlier, it's like one of the things this year, especially post breakup, where I want to like start doing things by myself. Like I'm not going to wait for anybody to like take me to do something or like go with me to do something. I'm just going to start doing it, because I'd waited on somebody who never did that for me. So you know what, like I'm going to like take control of my life and start doing it for me.
Yeah.
Which goes into the whole like self-discovery, loving yourself, and like what we talked about earlier today. We went hiking at Big Bear today, which was a really fun day. So we've had a whole day of just chats. But like getting to a place where you have to first love yourself and actually like yourself, because you need to get comfortable with your own company. Yeah. And not depend on someone else to distract you from that.
Yeah, you got to date yourself.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to date yourself. Don't feel like people are looking at you or whatever. Like just do whatever you want. And if you want to travel, travel. If you want to go out to dinner, go out to dinner. If you want to go watch a movie, go to the movies. Who cares if you have somebody to go with? Like, just do whatever you want. And I think maybe this also kind of leads into another thing that I would wanted to talk about was my whole experience last weekend was when I took LSD.
We went to Death Valley for his birthday. Very fun trip.
Yeah. It was a great trip.
No pun intended.
But there's also two sides to it that we were talking about earlier, where like, yes, you have to be comfortable with yourself and loving yourself and being comfortable with just doing things alone, which I did a lot of things alone. I traveled alone. I got really into hiking after Peru and did a lot of hiking alone. And I went on a backpacking trip alone in Sequoia. And all of that made me feel really comfortable with myself and made me feel really strong and confident. But you also do kind of miss the connection with people. And I think the whole trip last weekend in Death Valley with all of my friends who I love so much in Death Valley. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I think I came to the realization that you need both. Yeah. You need friends, you need people, you need connection, but you also need to be comfortable and confident in yourself.
Yeah. And that goes to say with everything, where there's a balance just in general. So yeah. I think that's a really good point, where that like brought up that awareness of like, oh yeah, as much as like you've gone to a place where like you can do just you, it's okay to want to have people.
Yeah. And I think that's what made me want to reconnect with you and with Christian as well. And I'm so happy with the friends that I have around me now, because they're so, I mean, they genuinely love me. And I felt that last weekend, that my friends really, really love me, and I love them. And I think you have to cherish those friendships and those relationships, because that's so important in life.
Yeah. And when we were in Death Valley, I was having like a heart to heart with Isaiah, and I ended up just getting so emotional, just sobbing out of nowhere of just like how happy and appreciative it was to like have you back as a buddy and like in my life. And it just really I was reflecting a lot about that in that moment, and just like within the past couple months that since we've been hanging out and talking again, of like how important it is of the people you surround yourself with. Like ends up being a reflection of yourself, and like what kind of people do you want to be influencing you or like being there for you. I think when it comes to friends, you like that's a one area where you're definitely allowed to be selfish and picky. Of like, do I want this type of person in my life? Or are they benefiting me in any way? Not that you want to like drain them and use them completely, but you know, if they're not adding to you, then they should not be there. If they're taking away and subtracting, then you need to cut them loose. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was just really cool to see, like, meet all your other friends at camping, and just like seeing how everybody was. And yeah, you can just really tell that they all really loved and cared about you. And it made me so happy to see.
It warmed my heart. And for any of those interested in taking LSD, it's pretty cool. Because I was just overcome with just feelings of love, and also that connection. Like I did kind of get that similar feeling with mushrooms, that I felt so connected with nature and people. But I think with LSD more, like I felt so much love, and so much just appreciation for the people that were around me and taking care of me. And I mean, I felt like I was being treated like a king the whole weekend, because I didn't do anything. I was just chilling, just doing whatever I wanted. I was just tripping all weekend, just doing my thing. And people were like, my friends were there just taking care of me. So I think not just, you know, psychedelics in general, I think are very healing and very revealing of your personal state.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like definitely brings a lot of like subconscious, like what's going on in your head, and what are some things you need to like be reflecting on or even working on.
So tell me your experience then with psychedelics. What have they taught you?
I think they have shown me to like listen to my gut. I would say my first relationship, there was just something off about it, but I couldn't pinpoint it. And I got really wrapped up in the fantasy that this person had sold me. You know, I was 21 at the time. He was a little older. So I was definitely more young and impressionable. And I think one of the experiences I've had with psychedelics, he literally, just his being brought me to a bad mental space. And I was like panicking, and like I knew deep in my gut, like I should not be with this person. Like I need to get out of it for whatever reason. But once I came out of it, I convinced myself otherwise. So like, no, it was fine. And that by far was the worst relationship I had been in, which is not a great person. That, and then I think any other experience where I subconsciously, I knew there was something up, but I just never really listened to my gut or my intuition, because I just wanted to really believe what I wanted versus what I knew. Excuse me. And so yeah, I think those experiences have just always like really shown me that like your intuition's not lying to you, and you need to freaking listen to it.
Yes.
And I think that ties into this breakup where it just got to the point where like my intuition cannot scream at me any louder than it has been. And I just need to bite the bullet and just trust myself that everything is going to be fine and that this is the right choice. And honestly, now, like, I could not be happier with my choice. Like, I knew it was for the best. Or even, like, lately, what's been going on with, like, silly stuff. Where it's, like, intuition, I know I cannot be in this situation. Or, like, this is just not what's supposed to be happening for me right now. And just having to trust that versus I think my issue has always been I put other people first. And so even though I know this isn't right for me, I know it feels right for the other person. So I just try to like convince myself that it's right for their sake. And yeah, I think it's that in a way it has helped me with just like speaking up for myself and just like trusting me. Yeah.
It's really interesting you say that because that's not something that I've attached to my psychedelic experiences. But once you said that, I was like, wait, yes, because there wasn't, I don't want to name the person or anything, but there was an experience that I had with psychedelics where I realized, whoa, I think I need to cut this person out of my life because I wasn't listening to my intuitions, and that experience and their presence while I was on that revealed to me like the truth.
Yeah.
It was like, okay,
yeah,
I need to make a change.
Yeah.
So psychedelics, they'll really reveal a lot to you.
It's like I have to chuckle because there's like the whole stereotypes of like the type of people that do it, or like the whole like tree hugger thing and like hippie and all that stuff. But like the stereotypes are there for a reason because I don't know how to describe it. There's just something where it just opens your third eye or whatever you want to call it. It just unblocks you from everything. I don't even know how to describe it, but there's just something there.
Well, I think it alters your consciousness. So I think what I was telling you earlier was like my experience with LSD was that I felt I was elevated to an alternate consciousness. And in that consciousness, I was a part of Mother Nature. I was a part of the ecosystem because I was in the consciousness of this fungus that I was ingesting. I got a glimpse of what it looks like to be a part of Mother Nature and to just see the world through that lens. And so you do feel that sort of like tree hugger energy, because you're literally a plant. You feel like a plant. I always tell my friends when I do this, like I feel like a plant right now.
Yeah.
And you just want to like sit in the sun and like photosynthesize because that's what plants do. But yeah, it is kind of hippy dippy. But I do also want to mention the medical benefits and like the scientific research that has been done around psychedelics, because there is so much stigma around psychedelics, and like I can't even talk about this with some of my family members because I was raised very religious. Same. And I can't really talk about this with them because they think it's like the same thing as meth or cocaine.
No.
Which, it isn't. It's not. It is a very powerful drug, but there are healing characteristics of it. And from my experience, I have found a lot of comfort and healing from taking them. And I want to mention this documentary that I watched on Netflix called How to Change Your Mind, which is based on a book by Michael Pollan. And it goes through all of the research that has been done with how LSD can cure alcoholism and how mushrooms can cure PTSD and ecstasy. All of these psychedelics have so much medical utility that we're not even utilizing because they're illegal right now. So I would recommend anybody who's interested or is maybe even skeptical about psychedelics to watch that documentary, and it'll teach you a little bit about the history of the war on drugs and how before the whole Reagan administration outlawed psychedelics, the whole war on drugs became a big thing. Before that, there was tons of research being done on how psychedelics can heal humans. And like the documentary is called How to Change Your Mind, because it can literally alter your brain chemistry and change the pathways in your brain. And it's true. I mean, it really is true. So watch that documentary, I'd say, and it'll change your perspective a little bit, I think.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, the classes I was taking all last year for psychology, and so we had to do research paper, and I had it. The research paper was kind of like how a substance can affect mental health. So I did mine on like different psychedelics. So it was mostly on shrooms, so mushrooms, psilocybin, and then with ketamine. And yeah, there is a whole lot of stigma, and I think like again like a balance. There's the people, just like anything, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, weed, gambling, sex, like it doesn't matter. There's people that don't have a self-control, like a self-discipline with it, or they just take things way too far. And I think that's where like stigma goes to psychedelics, because they think it's just like, oh, these people that just like take these things like unresponsibly, and take so much that they're like a danger to society. But then there's a lot of really interesting research on exactly how like it affects your synapses and your receptors in your brain, and how it helps with PTSD, anxiety, depression. And so it's just super, super interesting. And I'm curious to see where research and studies and how therapy goes with it. But yeah, psilocybin and ketamine, like for sure the ones to do if you're dealing with like PTSD and depression, which is so interesting.
And I think they're doing research on it now. Like the research has kind of picked back up, which you'll learn in the documentary if you watch it, is that like now the research is coming back to life. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing that they have clinics where you can go to and have a whole like psychotherapist, a licensed psychotherapist, like take you through this journey. And I think it's really important for us to bring awareness to that, because a lot of states are bringing up legislation to hopefully like make that legal to integrate into medical care. I'm not saying like recreationally, like you can just buy these drugs, at a dispensary like weed, but I think it should be integrated with medical care and prescribed to patients who deal with certain afflictions. Yeah. Because they can really help. And I'm not affected by alcoholism or PTSD or anything, but I can definitely see how that could help with those sort of afflictions, because it does, like I said, it gives you perspective. It changes your mind. And so that's kind of like a prison that some of these people are in, like a mental prison. Yeah. And it could get you out of that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Stuff's wild.
Yeah.
It is so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this shit is ancient, man. Like mushrooms, people like thousands and thousands of years ago, people were taking this and having spiritual religious experiences. And then we just outlawed it. Like, who are we to outlaw this like spiritual like plant? Yeah. That connects you with the earth, And LSD, for those who are interested, is also a plant. It's extracted from ergot, which is a fungus. So it is a plant as well.
Fungus be tripping,
man.
It's kind of like if anybody that's been listening to the podcast for a while, if you remember the episode with Luke where he talked about his ayahuasca experience. And
that was a cool episode.
I don't think he got super, super deep into it. But when him and I had a phone call before recording that, just like he was sharing like the very therapeutic stuff that he experienced through it. So like that shit, like it's therapeutic for a reason, and people do it for a reason to get some type of healing out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might think to anybody who's curious, like do your research.
Yes, do your research, watch the documentary. And I also want to recommend another documentary called Fantastic Fungi, which is mainly focused on mushrooms, but it's based on a book by Paul Stamets, who is a leading expert in mushrooms and psychotherapy and all of that. So that's another documentary you should watch, also with How to Change Your Mind.
So you guys have homework.
Yes.
If you're curious, you have homework. That was good shit. Is there anything else you're like, you think want to share or?
Well, yes, but I think we'll save that for the next one.
For the next one.
But from this podcast, I think main points to take away is just live life, and if you want to do something, go do it, and don't get too stressed about anything. Just enjoy life, because it's pretty beautiful out there. Just look around.
Yeah, I think some takeaways I'd give to that too would be like trusting your gut, your intuition, doing what's right for you, getting comfortable with not being comfortable. Like that's the only way to growth. Whether it's career, personal goals, family, a romantic relationship, friendships. Knowing that if it means like having to leave a situation, you're going to be okay. I think like with my breakup, like especially within the first week, it felt like the worst thing that had ever happened. But then if I reflect back into my entire life, I'm like, no, I've been through worse. Like this sucks for sure, but I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And this is like the step I need to take to get to a healthy place, which ends up leading to self-discovery. And so kind of like just kind of wrapping everything up. Everything I've experienced the past 3 months of like really discovering who I am, like meeting all these new friends, rediscovering and reconnecting with friends, just all these new experiences, all the like traveling I've been doing so far. Like it's all stuff I'm like feeling. I'm at the place where I feel like I'm really discovering the real Zyra, like who I want to be and who I am, and not like keeping that person in a shell because of somebody or something. So my 2 cents to people listening would just be like, do what's best for you. Like do what you freaking want to do.
Yep.
Because like if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. You have to be like your own champion and your own cheerleader. Yep. And then of course surround yourself with good people.
That too. Yeah. But I also do want to just add to that, because maybe this will tease the next episode a little bit. But I have been getting into Stoicism recently and philosophy, and that is a main thing that I just read the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and one thing he talks about is he has a quote, and hopefully I'll remember it correctly, but it goes something like, the impediment to action advances action. And another person who I would recommend on YouTube is Ryan Holiday, who's a Stoic expert, and he translated it in one of his books to "the obstacle is the way." And I think that's a beautiful thing to meditate on, because you'll go through shit in life, but you should use that as fuel to advance yourself, because you're going to go through shit either way, but might as well learn something from it and improve on the next obstacle that you overcome.
I love that.
And I have to give you that book. I have it in my car. I'm going to give it to you.
And I have the other one that we were talking about today.
So
we can swap books today.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Well, shit, I guess this wraps up the first episode of season 2. So again, so happy to be back and doing this. By the time this episode kind of, I think, airs, it'll probably been a month probably since we've been recording. But I just want to share with people listening, like I have been really missing to to be recording. I've been missing doing the podcast from hearing from you guys. I have been working on this for the past few months, just like rearranging this space for the podcast. So yeah, just thanks to everybody that actually is listening to this one and has been patient with me. Thank you for being on it and sharing.
Thank you.
No, it was really cool. We had been talking about this for a few months, so it feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would cheers you, but my glass is empty.
Yeah, I got a little bit left.
Well, okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Again, I really missed you guys so much. And I'm going to be doing my absolute best to keep this as consistent as long as possible. And yeah, you'll be probably hearing more little tidbits of where the frick have I been for the past year and a few months. But anyway, tune in for the next episode, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.
We did it.
We did it!
Oh.
Yay!
I need another one.